Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show Live. It's the post-season analysis for Leeds United. I'm Stephen Brown, and joining me to dissect what has been an absolute car crash of a season for Leeds United that has ended up in relegation, it is Jason Booker. Jason, how are we doing?
I'm all right, mate. I think with the way that the season's gone, certainly with the way the last 8 or 9 games have gone, and then last weekend, I don't think there was this kind of like abject disappointment and hurt yesterday that there might have been had we have, shown more fight, shown more spirit, shown more potential to stay up. We won last week and then threw it away this week or something like that. There were none of that. There were very much a case of an understanding, I think, and acceptance that we were going down. And it kind of, I think, maybe took the impact off how painful it is. Maybe it'll set in a little bit more when we get the fixtures and start getting the links to some of the players, and some of the players start coming through the door, and we get a manager and all the rest of it, and maybe then it'll hurt more. Like, it's real tough to kind of digest and understand it all. So I'm not good at the same time because, for me, Leeds United consumes me a little bit more than it should do. Been away this weekend on holiday and still make sure that I can see the game yesterday and try and just, I guess, I don't know why I'm even there. Like, I want to watch it because I feel like it's this duty bound to do it, and if I don't do it, something horrendous might happen. I don't know, but it's just the life sentence that you plague yourself with when you support a club like ours, So that's where I'm at, mate. How about you?
Yeah, to be honest, the feeling I had after we actually went down, it was kind of a mixture of shock. Even though it's been coming for a while, it was still this thing of we've actually been relegated now. We have actually been relegated. So even when you had such a small chance available, I guess, somewhere deep inside your brain, you think, oh, maybe it's not quite happened yet, blah, blah, blah. And then when it happens and you kind of just sit back and you try and take it in, I mean, it's just unbelievable. It really is. I do have to apologise in advance because with this stream, we're going to try and cover kind of a little bit of the game yesterday, not dwell on it too long, obviously, because it was another horror show.
Pointless. It's just pointless.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a few things I want to just cover, and I'm interested to get your take on it as well, Jason. There's so many things happening or not happening as may be the case. So, we're going to try and cover lots of things. Anything we don't cover, we will pick up in future streams because I think there's always going to be something to talk about with Leeds. Joe, cheers for your comment, mate. Please, everyone, get your likes in, do subscribe, do get your comments in. We want to hear what you guys think and suggest some topics. What do you want us to discuss as well? Joe, even in all, how are you both? I'm going to say this, even though I don't support Leeds, we all have to stick together. I think my championship prediction, Norwich, Leeds, Leicester to come back up. Well, I hope so. I hope so, mate. So let's deal with the game yesterday. So let's just get this right. We pick 6 defenders. And we're losing within a minute and a half. I mean, what can you do with this team? What can you do with this club? Like, I just don't. What are you supposed to do, Jason, with that?
I mean,
we didn't even get any false hope or false sense of hope. I saw some people before the game saying, "Oh, I know it'd be typical Leeds that we'll be winning till the 90th minute and then they'll equalise, or Everton will be losing and then they'll equalise." No, Leeds, it's rolled out from a minute and a half.
Yeah. Well, you know what we did? We actually compounded the problem and made Goodison and the King Power have instant kind of buoyancy. Like, nice one. Like, nice one, lads. You know what I mean? I mean, we'll touch on the game yesterday and talk about culpability. And, Sam, I think, takes a bit of the blame yesterday. Like, he absolutely does. But that being said, regardless of the team that he picks, to be 1 down within 90 seconds and to give Harry Kane that opportunity within 90 seconds, like you say, what can you do with that? Like, what are you meant to do with that?
It's just a joke. It's just a joke. At this stage, it is just a bad joke that I just don't understand. When you saw the lineup and you're playing 6 defenders and you think, okay, we're going to keep it tight, and you concede within a minute and a half. I mean,
he's so poor, Brownie.
What is Stroik doing? What has happened to this player?
I know.
He signed a contract extension not too long ago. It's not like we're going to be able to just get rid of him.
He was woeful yesterday. He was the worst player on the pitch for me, Pascal, yesterday. He was so bad. Like, for me, I have no confidence that he is, potentially going to be our left-sided centre-back next season. None at all. He won't be anywhere near the team for me. And, we're going to pick them all apart. Who should go, who should stay, and all the rest of it. Like, for me, if you can sell him, sell him. I mean, I've never been like a massive, he's the next best thing, like he's going to be a Dutch international like some people want. But I understood it under Bielsa. He showed time. Since Bielsa, he has been nowhere near.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was the Harvey Elliott thing that happened, or what it is.
That's a good point, that. It is a good point. He's never been the same since.
He never came back. He's never come back the same player. Yeah. And I was someone who thought, God, this guy is going to be absolutely class. You thought it was going to be him and Cresswell, at the heart of the Leeds defence for 10 years in the Premier League. But that's way by the by. In general, then, I mean, when you saw the team sheet in a game that basically we have to win and we're playing 6 defenders, I mean, what's your thoughts about that? What did you think? What was your reaction when you saw that team sheet?
I mean, it just didn't make any sense. We've shown that we can't defend anyway, and throwing more bodies at it quite often isn't the best approach to deal with that situation. I mean, the way that it kind of lined up, Verber was in a back 3, but I think we were actually playing Verber and Koch as DMs. It was just a mess. It was an absolute mess. And I mean, again, it goes to show the lack of quality that we have through the squad. But even then, saying that, the ability that we did have and the potential for maybe controlling the game that we did have and getting in behind and causing them problems, because they were terrible yesterday, by the way. They were really, really bad, especially first half. Defensively, they are all over the place. Davison Sanchez spooning them out for corners and whatnot. They were really poor. So, yeah, I was very, very surprised to not see Nonto, Somerville, Rutter, and we can talk about him at some point. I was surprised to not see any of them start. But, again, I mean, he's trying to Sam's culpable for yesterday in part, but at the same time, he's been asked to come in and save the day with 4 games to go, 2 of them being Newcastle and Man City. Like, what's he meant to do? He can hardly even get to know the players. Yeah. He's left with Pat being out. He's left with having to play Weston McKennie up front. Robin Koch were a target man at one point. He ended up having two deliveries into the box, and the best chances that we had, and 2 of the best chances that we had in that first half fell to Robin Koch. He was his furthest forward player. And again, it all comes back to recruitment and the profiles of the players that we have, and the balance of the squad is just horrific.
Yeah, I mean, we might get into it more later, but for me, and you're absolutely right, you're on a hiding to nothing when you come in with 4 games to go. You're asking him to perform a miracle, but it's this thing of, Rutter came on, and for me, Rutter looked decent when he came on, and he showed glimpses, and I'm going, why wasn't he playing in the last game? Why didn't he come in for Rodrigo in the last game? And it seems to me that it's more important for him to get his message across about how poor the squad is than actual practical solutions. And I feel like players like Somerville, Monto and Rutter are a different breed of player for what Sam is going to like and what he's used to. He wants the hard-working Jack Harrison, Patrick Bamford.
Yeah, he tries to lean on experience.
I'm sorry, but Nonto and Somerville have such an unbelievable connection, partly because they got on off the pitch. We saw that part before the World Cup where them 2 were linking up, smashing in the goals. Them 2 and Rodrigo connecting really well. And we've not seen it since. I know Somerville was out for a bit. We've just not seen it since. And then Rutter comes on yesterday. He could actually control a football. He could actually dribble. He had some technical ability. Yeah. And for me, you're playing 6 defenders. It's almost like, I don't know, he's protecting his reputation or something. But for me, I don't want Allardyce to get the job. I said before, when he came in, It was like a breath of fresh air. The way he spoke, very plain speaking, called it as it is. I hate his football. I do not want to see it in the Championship. I don't care that he won the Championship 10 years ago or whatever it is. I don't want Allardyce as manager. I'm sorry, I just don't. I really don't. I do not want to see this kind of hot potato football like in next year. I just don't.
I think we've got to be careful though, Brownie. I mean, I don't want Allardyce to take over either. But, you know, through 4 managers now, including the back end of Bielsa, you know, we can talk about what Bielsa had to put up with and the squad and all the rest of it. But there's a common denominator to all the failings, and that's the players. You know, the players are not good enough. Balance that along with the recruitment being so unbalanced. You know, I can't. I was watching yesterday's game with my cousin, and I kept on saying to him, how are we watching Leeds United and the best player that we have on the pitch be Adam Forshaw? How is that the reality that we're living with? It makes no sense, mate. And the facts are is that it comes down to Radrazani wanting to do it on a shoestring. He wanting to do it on the cheap as much as possible, or he's wanting to invest in players that can make him a diamond at the end of the rainbow. That's it. He wants Rafinha. He wants, you know, Sinisterra. He wants these players that he can kind of take a chance on and hopefully gain money out of down the line, because it's even on the balance sheets, it shows as a sellable asset. It makes Leeds United more valuable. You know what I mean? Like, regardless of actually if the transfer ever goes through while he's here or not, it makes the club more valuable having Jorginho Rutter, who could potentially be worth 50 or 60 million, than it does to have Danny Ings. Do you get where I'm coming from? Yeah. Because Danny Ings has got no investment return.
Yeah,
it's just terrible, woeful mismanagement. You know, you're doing it with somebody within recruitment that is notoriously terrible at his job. You know, Brighton have done a similar kind of thing in that they sign players for little and then build them up and sell them on, but they're doing it with good recruitment that actually know what they're looking at and know what they're talking about, and they do it balanced throughout the whole squad as well. You know, like if we'd have spent the equal amount of money that was spent on wingers throughout the rest of the team to improve them areas, we'd have been all right.
Yeah,
but we hadn't. Like, we only signed Verba when we were desperate, and you know, I think he's still our best defender, but he's even been poor recently. I think he's playing injured personally, but now I'm seeing people question whether he's actually as good as what we were saying he was, just because he's been next to all the other terrible defenders. There's a case for that. Maybe that is the case. You know, you've signed Rasmus at the back, who's worse than Ayling at right back, and then you left with the same team that we had 5 years ago. 3 years ago, whatever. It's just woeful. It's just so poorly run. And, you know, even then, and we're skipping over so many pages at once now, but, you know, the press release that's come out since with no signature on it, nobody even actually taking ownership of the situation. Radrazani in another country, Angus there yesterday, no programme notes. There's nobody left, mate. There's nobody left at the club to actually take responsibility. Sam might be out today. We don't know.
But the thing is, didn't you know it was going to be like this? Didn't you deep down know?
I knew it was.
The final whistle blew, and it would just be nothing. There would just be nothing. There's no presence in the stand. The statement. No, it's not signed by anyone. It's a couple of paragraphs. The Leicester one that's come out today, their chairman that's come out today, is heartfelt. It's lengthy. It clearly cares about what he's writing. Obviously, you know, they've owned Leicester for a long time and they're so invested, and you can tell they're genuinely heartbroken that it's done, and they're reflecting on the successes, which they should, and saying, look, we can hopefully build towards something bright again in the future. And we're getting radio silence. We're getting a statement that, you know, it's just nothing. It's a birthday card. It's a generic message. It's absolutely tripe.
I think that there's a big difference between the Leicester and Leeds collapse, because Leicester have actually got a better team than us, way better team, and they finished 3 points in front of us or whatever. But they've been they've gone into this position because they've allowed players that didn't want to be there to stay there too long, kind of stood on and put themselves in bad positions with players. Recruitment's not been great. They've got monetary issues as well because they've not wanted to spend. We don't have that. We don't have monetary issues. And aging squad has played a part of it. They stuck by Brendan for too long when they should have sacked him. They should have sacked him after about 10 games of the season. They still had him after, I think it was 32 or something. Yeah. 31, something like that. Like they've got it wrong in a different way. It never felt like they didn't care, and it more felt like a player mentality problem with them. That there were too many that were offside. With our lot, I still felt yesterday that the players that were on the pitch cared. I just didn't feel like they could deal with the mentality of the situation, the pressure and the problems that they were under. They had no direct tactics that they'd been coached into. A la Bielsa, the reason that we've even been in this position for the last 3 years was because he got a set of players that were incapable to play a certain way, and it was effective. Without it, and without the fitness levels, because they're not fit, we can see it, they're just average championship and lower players, a lot of them. And yeah. I'll include some of the other players in that we've signed,
Absolutely. Andy, thanks for your comment, mate. Summing up pretty much what you've said there, Jason. The team yesterday had 5 players who were playing in the Championship 4 seasons ago. Forshaw, Cooper, Stroik, Harrison, Ayling. This shows you why we were relegated. I mean, it's hard not to disagree with that. Or agree with it, rather.
Patrick Bamford is a great case in point with this, right? Anybody that's abusing Patrick Bamford for not being good enough at football is an idiot, right? You're an idiot. But he isn't good enough. That's not his fault. That's the club's fault. The fact that he's still our main number 9 after 3 years is the club's fault. Pat can only do what he can do with what he's got at his disposal after injuries and not being good enough anyway. He's never been great at dealing with the pressure and the mentality of the situation. So why are we now expecting him to all of a sudden be good enough? It's not his fault. It's the club's fault.
Well, but it's just pure stubbornness. Look at Angus Kinnear. We've got 2 international strikers. Yeah. And then the hottest prospect in England, he gets loaned out. The other made 1 international appearance. I think with Bamford as well, I think the injuries have taken the toll, clearly. They have. Some of the goals he was banging in, and I know it was behind closed doors and there were no crowd, etc., but those injuries have taken the toll. And what do? We don't sign anyone.
No. I mean, I've said it last stream that we had. Jesse Marsh said in the summer, we need 2 strikers. We signed no strikers. It's just crazy. We went into that season again and Pat broke down straight away.
Yeah.
It beggars belief that that's how we went about it. And the arrogance of the board and the management of the club has then filtered through to the players. Because the one thing that I will blame some of the players for, a la Pat, and Luke Ayling, I think, is kind of culpable for this as well. Is a bit of arrogance. We're here. This. I'm Leeds United's number 9 until I say otherwise.
Yeah.
That's not the way it should be.
Yeah.
I'll come back from injury and just take this position back again. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but we give him deals though. Patrick Bamford, 75 grand a week for 4 years. Ayling, we give him another contract, and now we're basically looking like we're going to lose drama, and we're going to be stuck with Rasmus and Ayling next year because it's not going to be easy to offload these players. I've seen people talk about, well, we can clear 2/3 of the squad out. Really? Who's buying these players?
Some of
these players.
So I sent you it earlier, didn't I? Some of the championship predictor teams that I've seen are just they are honestly hurting my brain. They either one or the other. So still have Ayling in there, still have Cooper in there, still have Forshaw in there. People giving Forshaw. I have been praising him for weeks, but no. We don't sign him onto another year deal. We need to rip this out at the root. And then people saying drama at right back and playing Pascal Stroik at left back. What are you looking at? What are you talking about? And then these other ones. And I get this in terms of the ambition. Gyökeres or Pirro up front. I get it. One of the first things that we should do is go and sign the main number 9 from the Championship. But given where we're at right now, we are going to lose out on Gyökeres and Pirro to Leicester and Southampton. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah,
because we are so far away from being ready for this. And I hope I'm proven wrong, and the 49ers come out with a notice tomorrow, and boom, we're in. Here's his manager, and the rest of it. But can anybody really see that given the position that we've been left in right now?
Absolutely not. So we've heard it today. So Radrazana's Sampdoria bid has been rejected. So what does that mean? Is he suddenly going to be interested in Leeds again? Is he suddenly going to crawl back to Ellen Road and think, oh, actually, I can, steer the ship right on this? What does that mean? I mean, majority owners he's fannying around buying another club in another country, and we're in total disarray. And in 10 weeks, the new season starts, and we're in the Championship, 46 games. We're getting, the Mickey taken out of us by Hull on Twitter because we're the big dog in that league, and they want to pull us down. They want to get at us. You're going to see all that kind of stuff all over social media because we're the target. Teams are going to put that extra 10 to 15% in. Are we going to be ready in 10 weeks? We're not. We're not. Look at the state of us. Look at the state of us. We haven't even got the ownership.
It runs
the bare bones is not even set up yet.
No, you're right, mate. And it runs through everything. The whole club. I mean, I don't think the deal for Sampdoria will dictate what Rad's decision-making process is with Leeds United. I just hope that it's not any sort of joint ownership with Sampdoria or whatever other Italian team and Leeds United. I don't think that's going to happen. If I'm honest, I think it's just easy media work at the moment. I would imagine that the 49ers will take us over. But just given how slack he is, who knows how long because he doesn't care, clearly. He clearly doesn't care. So if this takes 60 days to hand over an ownership and get the 49ers in, he won't care. We'll start next season criminally underprepared. I'm telling you, we will do well to be closer to the top half than the bottom half. I'm telling you, I am absolutely adamant on it. And not because that's what I want, it's just because look at what's in front of us. We're going to ask. I mean, the management situation is gonna change it all, and I'm sure we'll get on to chatting about manager potentials. But if they get that wrong, whoever it is that makes that decision, they've got a massive, massive job on their hands to get a combination of young players that have been misused, young players that are not ready, senior players that want to leave, senior players that want to stay. Signings that come in through the door, with ownership that's got no conclusion, it's just going to be so messy. So messy. It's not as bad as when we came down in 04, of course it's not. But there's a similar level of uncertainty because of what's in front of us.
It's an absolute joke. It's literally rats jumping off the sinking ship.
It is.
It's literally we're just being left to twist in the wind at the minute. I wanted something announced today. I wanted, the 49ers to hold a press conference or there to be a statement or someone on a video interview or something related to the club come out and say, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. We've had nothing. We've had absolutely nothing. And I tell you what, if the worst happened and it came about that Sampdoria and Leeds are going to be linked in a multi-club thing and we can take Sampdoria's players, whoop-de-doo, Serie B players, they're really going to help our situation. That Serie B players are really going to help us get back to the Premier League.
No.
Because it's not like they worked so different. Well, didn't it?
Well, it's a different kettle of fish too. Udinese were a team challenging for Champions League year in, year out. Sampdoria are in the second division, which is equal to our League One.
Serie C or something they might be going down to when it's all said and done.
It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. I mean,
but it's the type of cheapskate move that they would make. That's what worries me. It's the type of cheapskate way of doing it because there's no director of football now. So what's the strategy?
We just need to hope that the 49ers and the stake that they hold kind of governs that a deal needs to be done. They're going to want to protect their investment as well. People are saying, well, now that we've been relegated, the agreement ain't there to buy the club. That's the agreement for 450 million quid as a Premier League club isn't there. That's true. But this company, the 49ers, the business at the 49ers still own 44 or 49. It's rumoured for both. They still own that sharing the club. So that they can't just disappear, and they do want to own the club outright. Like, they wouldn't have agreed to buy us by 2024 for 450 million quid if they didn't want to own us. So, you know, hopefully there can be an agreement put in place where either they hand over the majority and Rad stays on for a year and hopes to get more money next year if we're promoted, or they buy us outright for a cut price and Rads just cuts his losses, because he still only bought us for 60 million quid and he's going to make another 100 million. And if he now wants to put that money, he's got a one-off opportunity to buy Sampdoria, who are a big, Italian club, by the way. They are an original, very similar to Leeds United, by the way, in terms of their history and stuff.
Mancini, Vialli and all that.
If they want to get a cut price deal, if he wants to get a cut price deal for them, and being with QSI and all the rest of it, like, there's a lot of things attached to this that us as laymen won't see and won't understand even. So I'm just skeptical about how long it all takes to then allow us the right opportunity and time to sort all this mess out.
Yeah, 100%, because nothing we've done has shown good planning ever. And we're now faced with such a difficult task. There was a comment earlier, actually, I think it was by Andy. It was a really good point. I'll try and flash it up if I can, but it'll essentially be that, you know, some of the better players, or who you could argue are better players, or players with potential, they'll have the release clauses, they'll be off. And what we'll be left with? We'll be left with Llorente. I mean, look at Llorente. I mean, Llorente is, what do you do with someone like Llorente? Is he cut out for Championship football? The thing that, and I can see Andy's comment, so I know which one you're talking about. The thing that you have to remember with that is we haven't signed a lot of ex-Premier League players that then want to, or would be desperate and only desperate to stay in the Premier League. So the one's good enough to stay in the Premier League, a la Jack Harrison, Nonto maybe, if he gets picked up by a big team and makes part of a squad or whatever. There ain't many others really, but use Jack Harrison as an example. He'll get another Premier League side. He will. Like, we have to accept that. He definitely will. The other players, Verber, let's just say as an example, Rasmus, some of these players that you're saying about nobody's going to want to pay the activation release clause, the clubs or the leagues that they came from will. They absolutely will. Verber and Rasmus, as an example, could both go back to Austrian Bundesliga and play under way less pressure for similar kind of money. Because bear in mind, they're going to be on 50% less than what they were signed up to in the Premier League. So I don't think that we'll have that hard of a time moving some of these on. So there will be some, but like Diego Llorente is a great example. Diego Llorente will get picked up by a Spanish club and will pick up 50% of his wages. That's what's going to happen with someone like a Diego Llorente. I think Koch will get picked up by a German Bundesliga. What about Spurs? Have you seen that one? That's just come out talking about Spurs.
I mean, their recruitment.
To be fair,
well, yeah, their recruitment's an absolute shit show as well, isn't it? So, like, that wouldn't surprise me if they did pick him up. They aren't the players that worry me so much. I definitely think we're going to obviously lose on as investments to some of these players. We'll have to just take that on the chin. It's the others that worry me. Your Luke Ayling, your Liam Coopers, who are 4 years on and are not as good as when they were under Bielsa. So now, you're not going to see Luke Ayling doing them runs down the wing that he used to do under Bielsa. He's just not. He's now a bottom-end Championship player. I'm sorry, he is. Like, Jack Hunt came on for Sheffield Wednesday today in the playoff final. I see him. I don't want to be disrespectful because I love Luke Ayling, but the Luke Ayling that we know and remember from 3 years ago, not the version that we now have, which is the version that we had before Bielsa. Or worse. Yeah. It's probably worse than that version because he's now 32 and I ain't got the legs for it anymore.
No, I mean, don't you think as well with some of the players? I mean, I think Verber's a good example of this, where he came in and looked, like you said, best defender and that, and then you've suddenly seen, even with him, the confidence drain out of them, and it's like this disease that hangs over the club. Sometimes I think it's almost like the worse the worse the results have got, the confidence has dropped. They look even worse as players, and before you know it, you're looking at a squad and there's nobody there that really stands out or does anything. I mean, it's going to be interesting with players like Sinistera, who are clearly levels above the Championship, but injury records and everything. What happens? I mean, I assume someone will take a punt on him, I would think. Jack Harrison, he's one of the first that's been kind of linked away.
Just quickly, Brownie, do you reckon we can get rid of this Isaac? Because
is this the Man United fan?
He's just pissing off our fellow Leeds fans, and we don't need it.
Let's get him. Let's
get rid of him.
Bye, Isaac.
We've left him long enough, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's not. No, I was just going to say there's a bit of banter between fans and everything, but then there's just that.
Yeah,
that
too far.
Not interested in that. Jack Harrison. So he was it was an early breaking story that he's likely to go. Played his last game for Leeds, and has been a good servant for the club. What is someone like Jack Harrison's legacy at Leeds for you?
It's a really tough one, isn't it? It's a really, really tough one with Jack because, when you look at it in the cold light of day, he has been one of our best performers for 5 years. He has. Certainly after his first season at Leeds where, he struggled at times to find his feet, but, Bielsa did a lot with him. I think you can't help but look on at him with fond memories. He's been a big part of what we've done over the last 5 years. I always think he's tried. I have always had a real problem with his mentality, his confidence, and he's admitted as much as himself. Like he openly came out and said he needed a sports psychologist. He couldn't deal with the pressure and the stresses and all the rest of it. And I think fair respect to that. But when you're at the very, very top end of the of the footballing ladder in the Premier League, you can't carry passengers, and he needed to step up another gear this year and didn't really. But I will always look on him very fondly. I hope he goes on to have a great career, and maybe when he's not under the spotlights of the Leeds United, he can flourish a little bit more. It's crazy to think, but if you're playing for Fulham or Bournemouth or even Brighton, with as successful as they've been, but the pressure that's on them, it's not the same. It's just not the same as that shirt weighs heavy. We've seen some fantastic players come through our doors and been horrific. Not because of management or structures, because they can't handle the shirt and the fans. And, I hope he goes on and does well. There's absolutely no chance that we see Jack Harrison in the Championship. Absolutely none. But at the same time, and I said this at the end of the game yesterday, and I stick by it, I won't miss watching him at the same time because I find him hard work to watch at times.
Yeah.
I mean, yesterday, he first half, he was so bad. He was so bad. And a bit of it was because he was instructed to move across the lines. I saw him on right wing and then left wing. Like, some of it is going to be tactical, but his first touch, his concentration, his composure, just get a grip, Yeah. So yeah, I hope that kind of sums up how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think, he will be missed, I think. And it feels like he's a player who should be entering his peak years, if not already there. But poor for large parts of this season, I think, in all honesty. But I do feel that he's not a Jesse Marsh player at all. Just not. Yeah, I feel like Jesse Marsh was a big problem for Harrison, just in the sense of the style of play, lack of width, etc., etc. But I think it's one of those things, losing a Jack Harrison. I know we nearly lost him in January, but to lose a player like that, who's been one of your pillars over the last few years, whether you agree with it or not. What is Trump 2024? Okay. Losing a player like that, it does make you kind of go, oh my God, we really are relegated now. We really are going to the Championship, and we're going to lose players of that ilk. Elsewhere there, we saw his final appearance for the club, Weston McKennie. I think he was pictured later on a train or something, getting out there as fast as he could. It's been absolutely torrid for him. I think his mate on Twitter has not helped at all with that. For me, get a bit sad in a way, because I think I like the idea of us signing a player with Champions League experience. I thought that is a step in the right direction. Even if, let's just get that guy out of the chat. Hang on.
What's going on tonight?
No, that's just
Maddens everywhere.
Trump, no, thank you. But yeah, what were I saying?
Western.
Yeah. I like the idea of us signing a Champions League player and kind of moving up a level, and look at the experience. We've probably done well to attract a player like that. That's what you were thinking. We're in a relegation fight at the time. You think, we're getting this guy with so many appearances for Juventus and Schalke and really good reputation. I think it's sad it's not worked out for either party in a way, because he's clearly talented. People have said his heart's not in it. Listen, we don't know inside his head, do we? We don't know how he feels deep down. Sometimes the body language hasn't been there, but sometimes that's just how people carry themselves. He got picked by everyone. He got picked by all the managers all the way through to the end.
Right player, wrong time, maybe, Brownie.
Maybe.
I think, fans would do well sometimes to think about the human element of footballers. And don't get me wrong, like I said a minute ago about confidence with Jack Harrison and he step up. And so it kind of sounds a little bit like flip-flopping, but build the full picture up with Weston McKennie. I remember that he was signed by Jesse Marsch 3 days later. He makes sub-appearance, comes on against Forest, and then Jesse Marsch is sacked. Then he's picked up by Javi Gracia, who's a bit of a wet. His best mate in Tyler Adams, who's promised to play alongside, gets injured for the rest of the season. He is then asked to play out of position because he's not a DM. He's been asked to, try and fill this void that Tyler Adams was doing before by Gracia, and he can't do it. It's not his game. Then, Gracia gets sacked and he has Sam Allardyce come in. And just think about some of the stuff that we don't understand as fans from the outside. You're Weston McKennie, you've played for some massive clubs, you've come from Juventus, and then you're dealing with this. You're dealing with Radrizzani or getting sacked, all these management sackings, Scabala coming in. I mean, you just think about all that and then think, are you really in the best mental position to go and play to your top level? That Weston McKennie is obviously a top player. Is he really in a mental place to go and play football? Like no, he's not.
No.
Absolutely. Look at the play. I said this before. Look at the players he's playing alongside. My word. I mean, again, I'll praise Adam Forshaw till I'm blue in the face. The guy has done unbelievably well to come back from the injuries that he's had. But you're asking Weston McKennie to play alongside Adam Forshaw in a 2 in centre midfield. Fucking Jesus.
Yeah.
What is he meant to do?
I know. It's just atrocious, isn't it? And it does feel like that stick that certain players get, it does cross the line too often, I think. Do you think we could get Corber on? Andy, thanks for your comment, mate. And just following on the back of that as well, Glenn, cheers, mate. What managers are free at the moment then? Have we got a wish list yet? Do you know what? To be honest, in terms of manager talk, I've got to admit, I've not even really been thinking about it other than I don't want Sam Allardyce as manager because I think there's so many elements to the club that are missing. I mean, who makes the decision on which manager at the minute?
Well,
and my problem is with the split ownership, they can both kind of go, and it's not all my responsibility. I mean, we've already seen that. I remember Radrizzani last year saying, the 49ers need to step up more. Yeah, he was hoping they would step up more. So, but they only own 46% or whatever it is. And you think, well, hang on, who's grabbing the bull by the horns here? Who's leading this project? So who's going to pick the sporting director? Who's going to pick the manager, first of all? For me, those are issues you need to sort out first. And by the way, the end of the season is now. You've got Southampton, got a manager in place, got a director of football in place, getting all their chips laid out on the table. They'll probably sign some of the better championship players and they'll be ready. They'll be good to go. They want to bounce straight back, but they've got a plan.
We're already behind Brownie.
For me, a manager, I wouldn't be surprised if we just go Allardyce. I really wouldn't be surprised if we just go Allardyce because what other thoughts do they have if the 49ers can't get this takeover done because they don't have a guaranteed option anymore? They can't just go, we're going to take this club now. They can't do it. So all Radrizzani has to do is kind of block it and say, no, I'm not negotiating. But at the same time, he's not going to back us anymore. He's not going to be willing to invest and lose more money. Why should he? Why would he? Like you say, he doesn't care
No, I don't care. I mean, Southampton, they've known that they were going down for a little bit longer than us, but they've already really moved to make things happen. They've signed a recruitment director today and head of operations or something like that. They've signed 2 senior management positions anyway. They're already... Is Russell Martin done now or not? I'm not sure. Like, I think they were a bit of a stumbling block with the fee, but by the looks of it, he's going to be their new manager. We are already miles behind, as are Leicester. Leicester have a structure of ownership on top. So I think out of the 3, we are by far the worst positioned to sort of, because of what's going on off the pitch. I mean, talking about managers, Rodgers has been quite heavily linked. I think it's unrealistic because I think all he has to do is just sit for 3 months of the new Premier League season and he'll walk into the first Premier League job that becomes available. It could pretty much walk into any Premier League job outside the top 4, I would say, Brendan Rodgers. And, it'd probably be high up on the list if Eddie Howe was to leave Newcastle, if, I know he's been linked with Spurs, but you get my point. I think he'd be outside the big teams. I think he'd be, potential for all of them. So I just don't see him drop into the Championship. Nuno, I can see there from Skip, is not a bad shout. It's a shout that I kind of was thinking of when I was thinking about coming on tonight. And I'm throwing this out there a little bit, but I tell you, won't be a bad shout because I struggle with the idea of Michael Carrick or, I said this before, Mark Robbins, these managers that have done really, really well in the Championship, but of the young, this is such a massive job. I just fear that then managers would get swallowed up. But one that kind of just comes to mind is Darren Moore. Watching Sheffield Wednesday today, he's dealt with the beast that is Sheffield Wednesday because they're a massive club. We might not want to admit it. They're still a massive club. Record number of points total to not get promoted automatically this season with Sheffield Wednesday. He's dealt with all that pressure. He did a really good job at West Brom and got treated like absolute dirt, to be fair. And I'm not saying he's my first choice, but I'm just throwing it out there as a potential. If you want to go and make a little bit of a statement to the Championship, not the Premier League, the Championship, go and get one of the most promising managers who plays good football, shown that he can deal with a bit of an animal. He would be, in my reckoning, over some of the more maybe top-end Championship managers. It worries me. It worries me to death, does the management decision that we make. I can just... Either way, I can't see it going well. If Rads makes a decision, I see it being another Thomas Christensen appointment. And if it's 49ers, I just see it being Vieira. I see it being a Vieira, a big name in America that is flashy and jazzy, and it just scares me because he's just not a good manager. So that's where I'm at, mate.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good shout and something to keep an eye on. Skip, I've left your comment up there, mate, because you've got probably my all-time favourite player as your profile picture, David Batty. How we could use a few David Batties in that team, absolutely. Nicholas, you're saying keep Big Sam. Oh, mate, you'll have to give us some reasons. What's you thinking with that there, mate? Let us know, please. Flat Cap, personally, I think a lot of these players will be gone. Most will be sold at a loss. Let's not be deluded. Leeds will start with a Championship team to compete in the Championship.
You know what? Let me just say on that, I'd be happy with that because right now, I don't think we've got a team suitable for competing in the Championship. And I'm being deadly serious.
Yeah.
Like I think I'm watching Sheffield Wednesday today, and I'm thinking these steamrollers. If we start the season with Robles, Ayling, Rasmus, Strike, new left backs there, some of the names that have been banded about, people wanting him still play Forshaw. Let's say Somerville stays and Nonto maybe even stays, and a new midfield sign. I'm just throwing this together and Pat up front. Like, I look at that and I think, like, with no identity either, like we've got no kind of playing style that we're excited to watch, or think this smashes to bits.
Yeah, we're at that stage where we are broken, and the only way you're going to change that is, like you say, you've got to get the right manager in. I mean, in terms of the managers, just to kind of go back to that aspect there, I think for me, Leeds is a club where you need a special personality to drive it forward. I think
I agree.
We really do. I mean, for me, my kind of thing is, and it is a bit of an unknown, and I don't know if he'll have the personality to do it, but I would love to see Iriola given a chance. Now, that is an unknown, come from a separate culture. I think probably the Bielsa link is in my head and that the type of football. But whether that could come to fruition, maybe a Nuno, actually, I'd not even thought of Nuno. I think he just won the league, hasn't he, as well, in Saudi Arabia, beat Ronaldo's team, which is good. But
I just don't see Iriola coming in the Championship, mate.
Well, I know, we've fluffed it, haven't we, really?
Yeah. His stock's quite high. He probably gets it, because I believe he's let his contract run down at Vallecano.
He's going to leave.
He'll wait if he don't get a job ready-made. He'll wait for another fairly decent job to come available, and then he'll be the next project manager. We're seeing this more and more. I seen Andy, whose comment were it? Where were the comment about Gale? Sorry, Luton up, Leicester and Leeds down. None of it makes sense. I put a post out on Twitter earlier, or tweet out on Twitter earlier, about the fact that this old thing of big clubs and the attraction to it, and it kind of, not a God-given right, but almost like an element that the size of the club then dictates where they should be in the football pyramid. It's never been wider, because right now clubs they're doing stuff in the background to be properly run, and that's why you're seeing Brighton and Brentford, who are minuscule in comparison to some of the teams even in League One, Sheffield Wednesday being one of them as an example. Like, they are so much smaller, but because the operation is ran off the pitch correctly, they have an ideology, a way that they're going to play football. They sign players to fit that profile perfectly. They get the coaching teams right, they get the management right, and then when the player hits a certain value, they sell them on, but they make sure they have ready-made replacements to come in and replace them. And that's why these clubs can do that, and that's why Luton are another fantastic example. Kenilworth Road, man. I've been, and it's a dump. It is an absolute dump. The players that they've got, on paper, some of them wouldn't compete in League One. They wouldn't, but they've been able to achieve what they've achieved because they've had an understanding of what they are. They've got a value that runs through the club. They make, Kenilworth Road horrible to play at, and that DNA runs through the club, and they've been able to achieve playoffs 2 years in a row, mate.
Incredible.
And they're going to start next season a division higher than us. It's wild. And more it just makes you think the fact of being Leeds United, it doesn't mean anything unless you have that setting behind, which Bielsa gave us for 3 years. Matt, they were so lucky. Man, they honestly, they felt so lucky that magical man decided that, I get Leeds United. I understand it.
I'll go down to the Championship.
Yeah, I want to come and do that. I mean, what must he have had to put up with? I feel
mind, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I were a Bielsa supporter right the way through. I were gutted when he left, but I understood it on the face of it. Now that I fully get it, I was so wrong. And anybody that still dies on the hill of, we're the right time to sack Bielsa, my word, I don't. It's like saying the earth's flat. You know what I mean? It just makes no sense.
Absolutely. Flat cap Luton equals walking through the terraced houses to enter the crowd to watch your team. Yeah,
I'd pee in somebody's back garden.
Yeah,
like that's what it's like. It's horrendous. I've never seen anything like it. But you go underneath somebody's bedroom to get into the ground. It's crazy.
But the thing is, you're right, though. If you're well run, it doesn't matter. All that history stuff. I mean, look at Leeds, are the best example. We could not get our act together for 14 years before Bielsa arrived. It took that special man to get the whole club going. Before that, it doesn't mean anything. It just means that teams want to beat you more, to be honest. Point I wanted to discuss with you here, Andy, we need to see some of these excited youngsters. We have JB Gray, Joseph Cresswell, etc., who will be hungry to play and also add some experience. Now, what is your take on integrating some of these exciting prospects into a Championship environment? Obviously, some of them have got exposure to that now. Gelhardt, Hjelde, Cresswell, they've been on loans this season with different areas of success. What's your take on that? Is it time for these guys now, JB as well, great? Is it time to bring these in more and more, or
I think
the problem is, we don't see much of them. We've not seen them much in the first time first team experience. It's that kind of thing of like Bielsa said, whatever's not being used yet is imagined to be the solution. Is it a case of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great expression, but I think the conversation is very different in the Premier League than in the Championship, because the Championship, while is a tough league, it doesn't have an abundance of quality. Like the step is massive. You look at some of them teams that are in the Championship playoffs this year. They're not particularly great. They're not. Middlesbrough were one of the better sides after Carrick took over, and they've got Alex Mowat in centre midfield. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not hating on Alex Mowat, but he is what he is, and he's the standard that he is. So for me, like, I'm definitely down for that. My worry with the kids is that they get put into this environment that is quite toxic. I really think that there's a big, deep-seated, rooted problem in between the youngsters and the older guard, and I think it needs to be ripped out. And you have to be ripping out the older ones. You have to. For me, I would be doing everything I possibly can, and I've defended him at times, but we are where we now are. We still need to evolve. It's not his fault. I agree with all that, but we have to get Pat out. He has to leave. Luke has to leave, in my opinion.
But how do you get Pat out on 75 grand a week?
Well,
how do you do it? You can only pay him off, but they're not going to do that.
Again, you look at a loan, don't you? You look at a loan and you subsidise some of the wages. You do. Pat's going to be on 35 grand with his 50% reduction or whatever. You tell, maybe even a Luton. Luton are a great example. Like, you say, look, we're looking at getting rid of him. We'll pay him 17.5 grand. You pay him whatever, and you take him for a year or whatever. But for me, there has to be a rip out. I'd probably even put Cooper in on that as well. I think we need a real hard reset. You're taking the memory stick out and putting it back in again. Like the whole thing needs gutting. And I think at that point, you then potentially, I'm not saying that we then don't have experienced players, by the way. We sign experienced players to come and do a job for us. Jack Hawkes, Brownhills from Burnley. These players that are potentially going to get moved on like teams should when they get promoted. You sign some of them and then you put them with an Archie Gray or, JB. I'd be more than happy having Cresswell in my back line this year, but I don't want him next to Pascal Stroik and I don't want him next to Liam Cooper, ideally. I don't. No. Liam Cooper had an all right game yesterday again, and he's had all right games all the way through, but we have to evolve. I want us to go out and bully this situation and make a stand for who we are. You know what I mean? Don't be starting the season with Liam Cooper, please. No.
Exactly. We can't do that again. Guys, if you're watching the video, please do pop a like on the video. That would be much appreciated. Thank you for all your comments as well. Really interesting to just hear what people are thinking, kind of where your head at's with everything. Graham Smith from the YEP posted a few hours ago. He said, lots of you asking for takeover news. It doesn't sound particularly imminent from what we're hearing. But this is the latest. So for me, it's just going to drag. This takeover is just going to drag and drag and drag. And we'll still be looking at this situation unless something just dramatically alters. But, there's no communication either. We're just left in limbo. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking.
Yeah. 62 days, is it, to the start of the new championship?
Is that all?
Yeah.
Oh, my God almighty. Honestly.
I think that's right. First week of August. And we play the cup, I think, before that. 30, 60... Yeah, it's about that. Anyway, it's not much more than that if it's not that.
No, absolutely. Skip, realistically, we need a new left back, right back, CDM, centre mid, striker, possibly left winger, depending on Nonto. What do you think about a Nonto, Somerville? What do you think those guys will do? Do you see them staying or?
I don't know. I think Somerville could probably attract a Eredivisie team if he wanted to go back home and play over there in the top flight. I think he probably could. I could imagine him staying for a year and playing well in the Championship, though. I don't see Nonto staying. No. I don't. He's too good and he's got too much potential. He's an Italian international. Like, why would he be okay with dropping to the Championship? I think he probably picks up a club back in Italy and plays towards the top end as a squad player until he is fully developed into a first team player. I do think he's dropped off a bit, but again, can you blame him?
In and out of the team as well. He's can you blame him?
So it's funny because I think Sinisterra is probably our most talented player, but I see him as being the potentially the one that we have the best chance of keeping hold of from the really, really good players that we have because of his injury record. But if we had the opportunity to regain 15, 20 million for him from a team in Europe or even going back to Eredivisie, I would take it because from what I've heard, I don't know if you saw Connor say this earlier, but apparently he's heard from within Leeds that he has not even trained this year. Like when he's played, he's not been training Monday to Friday because he's so broken. And then he's been rolled out on the Saturday, played what he's played, and that's why he keeps on breaking down in games, which I can believe. I'm not saying that is the truth, but I can believe it. So yeah, it's a tough one. When I think through the squad, I think Verba probably stays, but I think he'd have suitors if from Germany and Austria if he does want to move. Probably not even sold his house back home yet. He could probably move back to Salzburg, no bother. You know what I mean? Yeah. They buy him back for 2 million less than they sold him for, or something like that. Like he was their captain. Like they're not going to not take him back, are they? No. So it's a full reboot.
What about
what do you think?
Well,
Aronson's a great. Yeah. Tell me your take first. I will talk about Aronson.
Yeah, I don't know. I think what we're going to do is all the prospects. I could see the Nonto, the Summervales. I can see the ones who've got something about them getting snapped up. And I honestly can see us being left with Forshaw, Cooper and Ayling and going again. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the starting lineup on the first weekend of the Championship. Those three guys are there. And Bamford, by the way. I can see Bamford. I can see it because it's going to be a case of, well, they've got Championship experience. Nobody wants to buy them. We've given them, all these contracts under the sun to keep going and going and going. I can absolutely see it. There'll still be, depending on your manager, a lack of faith in the youngsters as well. For me, you might as well, if you're going to
depends on the manager, that doesn't it?
Depends on the manager. I think, if you look, Allardyce came in and it was just experience, which means you end up with 6 defenders on the pitch in a game that you need to win. Aronson's an interesting one. I mean, Aronson has been, he's got a release clause apparently, and this is what they're looking at. He's got the potential to go. I think there was something came out that the club were desperate to keep him for a bit. But I mean, for me, I think there is a player in Aronson. I really do. I think he's been a victim of just a shambolic club. And a really shambolic squad. He's not done the business on the pitch, I granted, but I think there is a talented player there. But yeah, I don't know. I can just see us ending up with a lot of these players still there. I really can. I think Drama will go, and I think he'll absolutely smash it for Luton in the Premier League. I honestly can see Drama absolutely smashing it in the Premier League, and we'll all be looking like,
oh shit.
Because he made 2 appearances for the Leeds in the first team. And
I'm hearing strong rumours about Mateo Joseph as well getting picked up.
Yeah.
I mean, again, how do you find space for all these? Like, when they can't even get on the bench when we've got no strikers.
Perkins and all this. Yeah.
This might be down to Sam over the last 4 or Gracia or whatever, but I don't know. I just think it's the problem again. I mean, this comes back to being able to deal with the pressure on match day, because again, being a kid, 18, 19, 20-year-old and coming on or even starting games for Luton or Preston or, whoever, like, don't get me wrong, there's still pressure attached to it, but it's not the same as dealing with it at Ellen Road. It's just not. So I find it a really difficult kind of balance to make sure that you get right. And that's when you sprinkle somebody like Bielsa in there that they can do it. Did it with Jack Clark, didn't he, before his illness, and he was the player, some player for Bielsa. If you're good enough, you're old enough and all that. But it's a really, really tricky. There's so much to digest and kind of try and figure out. I saw somebody a minute ago put that we need a left back, a right back, a centre back. We need all of them. We
need a manager at DOF for this or that and order.
Brownie, we need all of it, like position-wise, like talking on the pitch, right? So I saw somebody mention Rodrigo a minute ago. Rodrigo's not going to play in the Championship.
No.
He's not. He's scored 15 goals in a relegation team this season. He's going to pick up a fairly decent either Premier League club or La Liga club and earn the wages that he's on right now at Leeds. He's not going to drop to 50 grand and just be like, yeah, cool, I'm just going to stay. He's not. So, we need a striker. We need... Maybe we don't need any wingers. Maybe that's the only positions that we don't need because the youth that we've got maybe can fill them spots. But we need centre midfielders with Championship or Premier League experience. We need centre backs. We need left back. We need a right back. We might even need a keeper. Robles is on 50 grand a week. He'll go down to 25 grand a week. Does he want to play a full... backup keepers, they become quite accustomed to being backup keepers.
Yeah.
Sitting on the bench and earning a fortune, he could probably pick up another Premier League team for 50 grand a week. I know he's put a few media posts out there and he's looked all right. And he definitely was right to come in when he did. But I don't see him coming down to the Championship and playing 46 games next season. I don't see it. You might find that hard to believe, but that's, the life of a backup goalkeeper is very different to other players. So anyway, so then we need a keeper. We haven't even spoken about Melier. What's going to happen with him? Because his stock's plummeted through the floor. So now he's not worth 40 million that he was worth a year ago. He's worth 20, 25 at a punt.
Plus, we're selling from being in the Championship as well, which, they don't have to, press us too much to prize him out of there. Yeah, it's it's a real mess from top to bottom, is this club. It's a real mess. I think, is anybody in the comments, by the way, is anybody feeling optimistic about what's ahead? Is anybody thinking,
give us some?
Is there anybody out there that thinks Leeds are going to get their act together in time for the Championship? Are we feeling like we're actually going to do this? Because I'm just looking at it and just thinking it's just going to, it could get worse. It could actually get worse.
Can I just address a couple of points? So Andy's put, we can't lose all the players, we still need a squad. You're right? You are absolutely right. But there's two things to that. So if you then keep a player that doesn't want to be here, what performance do you then get out of it? What impact does that then have on the rest of the squad, the new signings, the kids that we've just talked about? So then is it right to keep them to form this squad? This is why it's such a problem, because these players were never brought in with the potential to go and play Championship football. That's why we're not built like a bounce-back yo-yo team like West Brom, Watford, Burnley, Sheffield United. A lot of them players were of the mindset that if we get relegated again, okay, fine, yeah, we'll go again and we get promoted. That's not what we've got. None of them are like that, because we are we've purchased for progressing in the Premier League. And the other comment that I wanted to pull up, what was it? I'd like to get us a few Premier League loans, Gil, just put a bit further up. I'd like that as well. But again, why would you, if you were Man City, Man United, Arsenal, whoever, why would you send the loan players that you want to progress and improve? Why would you send them to Leeds United? Why? What are you seeing from the outside? Take away the bias and it's Leeds United and all that emotion. Why would you send a player to progress and get better and develop to Leeds United? You wouldn't, because it's a fucking shit show. Yeah. And we've shown it in the past that we don't actually progress players. We don't. Outside of maybe Bielsa progressing in Ketia, maybe. That might be a stretch. Even under Bielsa, we took players a little bit backwards. Look at Lewis Baker. Look at Izzy Brown. I know he was injured a lot, but Jamal Blackman got injured with us. And this goes back further and further over years. Ross Barkley, Andrews Townsend. I always pull these ones out. Barry Bannon. Player after player after player that comes to Leeds United can't deal with the pressure, or the behind the scenes stuff is so bad. Now, hopefully, the 49ers come in and can show these clubs that, we're about something different now. But based on what the facts are now, as we see it, why would you do that? I'm sorry, I know I'm rambling. Ben White's an exception. Ben
White's the only one in it.
Ben White's an exception. He is an exception. Good shout. Good shout.
Yeah, it's I know. I agree. I mean, if you're looking at the relegated clubs, You've got Leicester. Yes, they're going to have a massive reshuffle, but they've got a fantastic training ground. Their facilities are top. Their facilities are Premier League. If they don't stick with Dean Smith, they will have a good choice of manager, because if you bounce that club back up, you've got all the Premier League facilities there. It is a Premier League club. Southampton are putting everyone in place. So if you're a top Premier League team, you go, oh yeah, I'll send my player to Southampton. 100% I will. Yeah. But Leeds, where it's so up in the air and nobody's taking responsibility for this, and I'd love to know what the 49ers are doing right now. I would love to know if they're pushing for a deal or what is going on. I mean, how long are they going to lead this with no communication? How long is this going to go on for?
I think we'll hear something before the end of the week, which is still probably too long. But I do think, there's no way that we can, right? There's just no way that we can't. We have to hear something within the next few days. Whether that be, this is the succession plan, this is the idea, we're going to now look at a manager. I don't know, but there has to be something. And because right now we are completely rudderless. Angus Kinnear isn't a runner of the club. Rads is completely AWOL. We've got no director of football who would be the person normally responsible for making all these decisions. It's an absolute mess.
It really is. It's. I mean, Graham, thanks for your comment, mate. We're still a big club. Let's bully the other clubs for their best players. I just don't think we're capable. I don't think. I mean, who's identifying players? Who's recruiting now? I know they say there's recruitment stuff going on in the background, but who's driving that? If there's no director of football, if there's no, one owner out there, who's going to pay for it all? Who's going to put their hand in the pocket and actually pay to bully teams? We're Leeds United. We don't ever do that. I just
don't think it means the same as it used to do either, though, Brownie. We still think that footballers care about the old Leeds United and who we were. And over the last few years, I've come to realise that actually doesn't exist as much anymore. Players, they'll get the money that they want to get. Do they care about playing at Ellen Road, really, when they could play at, I don't know, Fulham's ground or Sunderland's ground or wherever? They're not really that bothered. 10, 15, 20 years ago, it really meant something. But you know what? We maybe have to kind of come to terms with a little bit of a change in the sea, that we're not what we thought we were, especially when we ran the way that we are off the pitch. Because off the pitch, we ran like a League One club.
Yeah.
It's the truth, guys. It is.
Absolutely. Gil, Sam Allardyce told Sam Matface that we should be taken over by the first week of June.
Is that true? I've not seen that.
No, I've not seen that. I think somebody else mentioned it. I just saw in the chat. But I mean, what date are we on? We're on the 29th of May. It needs to happen fast. It needs to happen really, really fast, because there's going to be so much churn and so much to do. Gail, I hear Sam is going to have talks with the board to thrash some things out. What, everyone in the chat, what are you thinking? Allardyce in? Are you happy with that? Is that something you'd like to see? I mean, what are your thoughts if it's Sam Allardyce, Jason? What are you thinking going into that? Is he past his sell-by date? What do you make of the football? Is that the type of football you want to watch? I mean, what's your thinking with it?
I think it's really, really hard to criticise him too much for 4 games with the players he was left with the club in the mess that it was left with. I do think it's really, really tough to even kind of use it as a point of reference to give us something to work on. It's not what I want, not at all really, but I understand the people calling for it from a potential of experience and, giving us a safe pair of hands, if that's what you want to call it. His football will be more effective in the Championship. It will hopefully have, money to work with, but it wouldn't be my choice.
No,
it's a really, really tricky one. But I'm not saying I agree with it, but I do understand the potential for calling for it. We really need some. What's the word I'm looking for? We need some Stability is probably what I'm looking for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Skip, Sam is not what we need. Far too defensive. Showed how we set up with 6 defenders and still lost 4-1. McAllister, thanks for your comment there. Who would you guys think should replace Big Sam? Can't keep him, surely. Let's have a look. Dad, it would turn our club into the Big Sam show. Not for me. Not my first choice, but okay with Sam. That's Gail. Yeah, I think as well. I mean, the Bielsa thing. It was the standard of football as well. It was that attacking football that was great to watch, and I felt like that was almost so popular and so loved that we were going to try and aim for that always. Obviously, the situation has dictated that Leeds must, and we just had to kind of get somebody in. You know, we've pressed the emergency button and got Big Sam in. I mean, would you take kind of middling championship position but good football, entertaining football, enjoyable football, or would you want to push on a bit more than that? I mean, is it just a case of do we just have to get back up now, or is it?
I think that has to come first, mate. Like, if there was the assurances or guarantee of top 2 under Sam, or entertaining football in 9th or 10th, I would take Big Sam all day, every day. But the problem is that the game has moved on, and possession-based football, it tends to be the way that successful teams are playing. Luton maybe being the exception, but I think Kenilworth Road makes a massive part of that. Yeah. Anyway, so like, I'd be interested to know the people that are calling for Corberon, whether they would be calling for him if he'd never had an association with Leeds United. That'd be my kind of rebut to that. I get it, but you know, when you've actually watched Huddersfield, they weren't great. He's not done a great job at West Brom. And I think if he wasn't,
what's the feeling about him at West Brom? I mean, what's?
I don't know how West Brom fans feel about him right now, but I would almost, bet that if Corberan had not been Bielsa's assistant, there wouldn't be anybody in the chat calling for him.
No.
I'm just putting it out there.
It's like the Lee Bowyer thing, wasn't it? You know, when Lee Bowyer was rumoured, it was like if he didn't have a past association with the club, it would just absolutely not happen, would it? Andy Corberan, good manager, but did not get West Brom into the playoffs. Gail, we need to go back to possession-based football. Well, see, this is the thing that's paying me as well is, man, oh man, it's hard watching your team when they have like 15% possession in a game and cannot pass the ball 5 yards. I mean, I just don't want to watch that. You know, I really don't want to watch that. I think you're right, though, Jason. I think we have to look to get back up as soon as possible, because when the parachute money's gone, you know, you really you're in the graveyard, you're in the championship graveyard, then you really are. One man I am interested to hear from, Richo, 63, evening all. This is our resident Everton fan. Congratulations, mate. You did it. I thought there were a time when you weren't going to, though, when Leicester were winning, you guys were still drawing, but you've done it fair play to you. Oh, this is a left field one. McAllister crazy. What about Wayne Rooney?
Stop it.
Yeah, come on.
Stop it.
Yes, yeah.
I can't think of, like, there's one name that I can think of is Rafa Benitez, when I think of the potential for having the character, the personality to deal with what the players would need to do. You know, Bielsa was so, and I don't want to compare everything to Bielsa, but you hit the nail on the head earlier when you need this kind of egotistical being, this power to kind of manage the club, especially with the ownership that we've had and all the rest of it. Like, he would be somebody that I would be really, really excited about. I really worry about all these young, flashy managers. You know, I just look at Heckingbottom and look at the job that he's done at Sheffield United for 2 years, and then look at what he did with us and how bad it went. And I just think, like, why is that? How is that? He was well thought of and did a great job at Barnsley. Came to us and obviously it went the way that it went. And then he's done what he's done at Sheffield United. So he's obviously a good manager. He obviously can get a tune out of players. He obviously can motivate players. But then he comes to Leeds United and and does what he does with us. So that's what really worries me about that level of manager. It's just different dealing with Leeds United.
Yeah, I think you have to kind of go. I mean, Bielsa for me was top tier manager. You look at who he's influenced in the game, how well thought of in the game he has. Okay, he's never managed a top European side, but that's not his style. He doesn't do that. That's not what he's about. No. He doesn't find that an interesting challenge enough. But for me, it was certainly that top echelon of manager. By the way, we could have probably had our pick of a really top manager if we'd have got rid of Marsh before the World Cup. We could have really. You look at Aston Villa now, qualified for Europe, and look at us. We're
Lopetegui.
Yeah,
Lopetegui is the one that stands out for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So some of these comments are freaking me out, like really freaking me out. Gerrard and McAllister getting linked. Oh my god! Bring back Click with Rooney. Just stop it. Richo, none of us deserve to stay up. All three of us deserve to go down, truthfully. Us, Leicester and Everton. Everton just have this way of being able to, I don't know, fluke it every year, just have three teams worse than them.
Yeah, didn't deserve to stay up, but to be honest, fair enough, Richo. I know. I mean, I think it's going to be difficult for you next season as well. I really do. I think Sean Dyche after the game even came out and said big changes need to happen. I think you're relieved you've stayed up, but at the same time, it's like, oh my God, what a challenge you've got going next. Skip, unfortunately, Leeds just destroys players and managers. It does it? I mean, it's just a football team, but it absolutely just churns.
Gail's comment there about Bielsa. Like we have to now treat it with the information that we've now got as opposed to the information that we had when that was happening. And the facts is that now we get to see the inefficiencies and how badly run we were above Bielsa. And if we'd have sorted out the problems before them thrashings, aka signing proper recruitment, not just Junior Firpo and Dan James on deadline day, signing him players after he told the board that them players have a shelf life of 3 years to be able to do his means. Well, you then get new players that can come in and replace them. And that's why we were getting thrashed the way that we were towards the end of the Bielsa era. I agreed with that at the same time. He's still stubborn. He should have changed. When were the injuries hit? We should have done this. No, you know what? I was wrong. And the facts is them players had to do it that way because they were so poor for quality that if they didn't follow the tactic and the fitness and the run, the running stats that were put out, if they didn't follow that to the letter, we were not good enough for quality. And that's why we had to do it that way. That's why Bielsa was insistent it had to be plan A better, not plan B, because they're not good enough to do plan B. Look at the managers that we've had in Javi Gracia and Sam Allardyce, in particular, are both very astute managers who can set their teams up defensively. And we have conceded more goals than ever before. Yeah. So, when you think about it like that, like what would have Bielsa achieved by abandoning what worked and setting us up more defensively? It just won't work because he didn't have the players to do it.
No, Gregory makes a good point. Orta couldn't find the players for Bielsa. It certainly seemed that way. Jason, is this the worst season you've had supporting Leeds, would you say?
I would go close, yeah. I mean, I were a season ticket holder in the season where we got deducted 15 points in League One, finished in playoff heartache at Wembley. I remember being there, or maybe 18, 19, something like that. Heartbreaking. I was there the year after when we got knocked out by Millwall. I was there the relegation season as a season ticket holder from the Championship to League One. And all of them, that both relegations from the Premier League the first time and then that Championship relegation were both tainted with bad ownership and money problems and all the rest of it off the field. And still somehow that didn't feel as bad as this one did. It feels so self-inflicted. It feels so irresponsible. It feels so avoidable. I'd find it hard. And, the performances were just so bad. Sometimes lack of fight and the lack of quality. Like, we've seen both. Sometimes they've fought and just not had the quality. Sometimes they've not had either. I think I put up with Jesse Marsh and his bollocks. Sorry, but that's what it was. His hot air. Like, he was just so out of his depth. And having to deal with Radrizzani and Orta and Saka the board, Bournemouth, and it's just a mess. And some of the players I've become so disconnected from and just don't like. So yeah, I would, to answer that question, I would say it's probably the worst I can remember in 30 years.
Bandy, he can top that as well after 53 years following this is the worst season ever. Yeah, I think as well it's because we've basically set fire to all the potential we had when we finished 9th in the Premier League. When we finished 9th in the Premier League, we were looking upwards. There was stadium redevelopment plans, training ground plans. Everything was looking bright. Whereas I think when we kind of sank through the leagues before, we were on that downward trend, but it was on the back of Champions League semi-finals. It was it felt part of the narrative we had to go through. It felt like part of the journey we had to go through was sinking down that low to bounce back. But probably individually as a season, this has just been absolutely horrendous. We've had so many spankings, just incredible amounts of incompetence at every level of the club. The general dismay. I mean, I've got a stat here. We ended the season getting 2 points from a potential 27.
I know.
This was at a time when we needed to be fighting for our lives. We should have been kicking every blade of grass. We should have been dying to keep, from what you've seen with Everton. Every time I watch Everton, there's like an up and at them, and the quality's not there, but there's a kind of spirit and an attitude. Same with, other teams that have been in the fight, Forest, etc. But with Leeds, it's just been so poor, and we've just really ruined the opportunity we had because we were the 18th richest club in the world or the 18th highest turnover in world football. It should have just gone up and up and up. Our commercial performance outdoes so many other teams in the Premier League.
I think
now we're back to the Championship. Now we're back in that hellhole, and it's crap. Is the Championship?
I think the position that we're now in going into this Championship season is worse than the season that we were going in before Bielsa. I genuinely do.
Yeah,
I know that we've got more money, and having a couple of seasons in the Premier League has allowed us to get parachute payments and all the rest of it. But in terms of actually being competitive and the feeling around the club and all the rest of it, I think it's worse, which makes it just then almost, I don't want to say a waste, because I will never not be appreciative of them 3 years.
No,
they were the best for me. Like, I remember the Champions League I were like 12, something like that. I remember it just. I remember, the good team, Viduka, Ferdinand, Boya, Batty, all that. I do remember it. But in terms of actually living and breathing it, them 3 years were the best.
Yeah.
Bielsa made me so proud of the club. And it doesn't have to be Bielsa. It doesn't have to be this, God-given manager that we were lucky enough to have for a few years. It just needs to be a collective, properly run football club from the top down.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'm just devastated by the way. I'm more devastated about the position that we find ourselves in than relegation itself. I could have handled relegation in a certain way, I think. Yeah,
this is what I mean when I said I felt in kind of a state of shock yesterday that it had happened. I mean, I just remember, when we got promoted and that feeling, that sense of joy, and when the documentary came out, the Amazon documentary, and you see, Calvin Phillips and Bielsa hugging, and I've just got that image of them two in that moment in my head, and I'm thinking, how did 3 years later we set fire to the whole thing?
Skip's just put, how is this worse than last season's team? Not only is it worse than last season's team, it's worse than the season before. It's worse than the first Premier League season, because the players that we're talking about that really shouldn't still be here were better 3 years ago than they are now. So it's even worse than that. And we've been in the Premier League 3 years. It's wild how bad this team is. There were a moment yesterday, I would pick, people's performances apart, but Rasmus took the ball on the right-hand side and kind of shanked a pass into the midfielder 5 yards away from him when there were an open pass 3 yards away. It's so poor. Then Pascal, I mean, 90 seconds into that second half with what he was trying to do to block the pass to Porro. Like, what are you doing? Like, the quality is just so low. It's untrue. 100%. Anyway, we're flicking back a few. I can't help it.
It's just I can't believe we're in this position. I can't believe we've done it to ourselves. I can't believe that we were 3 points outside of Europe in that first season back up. 3 points outside of Europe, and look where we are. Gil, it's like we haven't been in the Premier League yet. It does feel like that now. It just feels like click your fingers and we're back in that horrible world of the Championship. 46 games, Saturday, Tuesday. You know, teams giving it the extra because they're playing as, Sheffield Wednesday now we're going to have to put away Huddersfield. You know, they can't wait. They can't wait for it.
It's the cup finals. Even more so now that we've had a flavour of Premier League for 3 years and they want to keep us from getting back up there. Like, it's honestly, it is like it didn't happen. And it's sad. Like, I'll never kind of be sad that we had them 3 years, but it is like it didn't exist. I think there's 2 comments there that are interesting. So Scott, about the reason that we've gone down, like, that couldn't be any more true. Like, it's not to do with the fact of scoring goals. We've actually scored a lot of goals for a team that's been relegated. And we've scored more goals, I think, than Chelsea, or close anyway. And I know they've had a terrible season, but you get my point. Like, it's because we've not recruited and improved in vital areas of the pitch. I mean, the midfield is just an absolute disgrace. And the defence, which conceded 80 goals last year, has not been improved until January when we brought in Verba. Like, it's actually got worse. Like, again, like, Rasmus is worse than Ayling. And you know, Verba didn't come in until January anyway, and we had to let Diego Llorente go before that came. It's just a mess. Yeah. And then the team is not poor. It's the method that stinks. That's just a bit of both is true. Like, we know that Jesse was terrible, but the players are still not good enough. Jesse Marsh was given the job because he was a yes man.
100%.
That's what it was. He would do what the board wanted to do, and you know, yeah. Well,
he was he said himself he was a company man, wasn't he? You know, and he would just go along with it, you know, whatever. And the coaching staff, I mean, how undercooked that coaching staff was as well. You know, this is a Premier League team, Premier League situation. Also, you know, all this stuff about them not being fit enough that's come out now, and you know, Marsh not training them properly or whatever. The fact that they took out the sleeping chambers because they weren't used apparently enough, and you know, if that was used for the media room, and little bit by bit we kind of start to dismantle what Bielsa created and what he built at this club. You know, and this guy was the greatest thing that happened to us in 20 odd years, and we've literally returned ourselves to where we were. And the only thing we got going for us now is parachute money. That's literally it. That gives you a huge advantage going into the market. But who's going to be spending the money? What we're targeting with the money? There's too many things to sort out before we can even look to use that money wisely. But you know, it goes. You've got a couple of seasons, and then it drops right down. You know, it's not going to be easy.
No, not at all, mate. Not at all. I'd be interested to know Bandy's opinions on who would get into the Premier League teams. Because I'm telling you, there ain't many. There ain't a single one of the back 5. Maybe Meslier would. I could see Meslier going to Scum and being understudy to De Gea. That I can just see it. But there ain't a single one of the back 4. Tyler would, if he's fit, but he's coming off a bad injury. There ain't another one in the midfield that would.
No.
Sinistera would if he's fit. Pat wouldn't. Somerville wouldn't. Nonto would as a squad player to potential. There's maybe 5, I would say, of genuine Premier League quality. And I'm pushing it at 5.
What do you think of this? Scott Lightning, inept managers, Fulham and Brentford's squads are no better than ours.
I disagree.
Yeah.
I disagree. I think there's both. I'm not saying that it's, you know, if we had, I hate the guy, but if we had Thomas Frank as manager with, you've got to remember, it's not just Thomas Frank, it's the back. Like, we could have brought in De Zerbi as an example, and that would have been a great appointment, knowing what we know of what he's done at Brighton. But Brighton are only as successful as they are because they've got all the ducks in the row from above. Like, De Zerbi doesn't do the job that he's doing out on the pitch with the players if everything isn't right behind the scenes. The club has been structured to play a certain way. They've had their eyes on De Zerbi for years in the knowledge that Potter might leave at some point and it's going to be a perfect replacement. The players leave and they have a direct replacement to come in. Trossard leaves and they sign Buonanetto or whatever his name is. Like they have Mitoma was there kind of to step in when Trossard wasn't playing. Like and they'll do the same with Caicedo when Caicedo goes, or whenever Ferguson leaves, or whoever else. Like, and that Dan Burn left, you wouldn't have even known. Estupinan, boom, in. Better. He's actually better than Dan Burn at left back anyway. You know what I mean? So like this is how proper clubs run. I was wrong. I said when Christian Eriksen left Brentford, they'd struggled. They didn't. They brought in another player that filled the void perfectly. You know,
unbelievable, isn't it? Just unbelievable, isn't it? And look at the state of us. Fantastic. Gil, what do we know about the 49ers if they take over? Well, this is a good point because it's their investment hand, isn't it? You know, it's this investment group. Make no doubt about it. It's there to make themselves money. Sure. You know, that's their aim. They just want to make a lot of money. Hopefully they know they've got to treat the product, because that's all we are really, with a bit of care, attention and investment. I think the guy has a great reputation, Parag Marath. I think he's got a very kind of, he's got his head screwed on, and whether that translates to British football or not, I'm not sure. But I mean, in times in the past, I've been a bit frustrated with them that it's felt like they've been a bit too hands-off, but we don't know what happens behind the scenes. It's frustrating that a deal wasn't agreed if they got relegated. It would have been lovely if there was something put in place, but Radrizzani was never going to, do that. And I'm afraid, if this drags on, it could be a case that we're stuck with Radrizzani in the Championship, unfortunately, and we'll have this kind of 50-50 ownership practically, and nobody really taking responsibility for what's going on.
I mean, for them, they're an investment group who make more money by their product being more successful. So yes.
It's in their interest, isn't it?
It's in their interest for us to be better and to be a Premier League club. They pay more dividends to the shareholders and all the rest of it. So I'm not worried from that point of view. I'm just more worried about the process of actually getting there.
Yeah.
What happens between now and actually getting to them being in full control? That's what worries me. We can deal with that after. Like, there's no point worrying about what they're going to be like when they're not even fully in charge right now. I mean, I can't help but kind of look at these comments and just kind of want to continue to talk all night.
I know. I don't know where the time's gone.
I know, it's flown by, isn't it?
An hour and a half already.
The squad is really, really unbalanced, but I don't believe, Scott, that all our wingers would get into Premier League clubs. I don't. Like, Nonto, he's obviously got bags of potential, but I'd be interested to know where his future will lie. Somerville, for me, right now, doesn't get into many of them Premier League squads over the players that they've already got in them positions. He doesn't. Not the Southampton and Leicester, Leeds aside, teams that have stayed up, they don't. We like to believe that they would, but would you play Somerville over Damari Gray as an example? I don't think you probably do. No. Sinisterra's too injury prone. We know his quality, he is, but he's too injury prone. So does a Premier League side part with 15-20 million for a player that's been out for 6 months of the 9 months of the season? I don't think they do.
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
Just get to some of your other comments then. Richo, hopefully new owners incoming, sack the board, get their own bodies in and get the club run properly. Richo, what's going to happen with Everton then? What are you expecting going to happen your way? I'd love to know what you're thinking there. Gail, Somerville has been awful recently. I don't know about that, Gail. I think he's kind of been in and out. I really like Somerville. I think actually he's kind of a bit of an elite dribbler, to be honest.
I think he'll rip it up next year if he's there.
Yeah,
I do think that. I think he'd be very, very good in the Championship. I think he'd be one of our main players. I worry about his injuries, mate. It just seems to get a knock all the time and just be out for 2 weeks again.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. Bandit, our identity started in 1961. This identity has been lost. Fair dues, mate. So you've been a fan for 50 years, so you'll have seen Revy and all that, all the good
Different times, isn't
well. Gail Somerville was best player down at Arsenal. We have not seen him since. That was Scott getting replying to that. Richard Wilfred Nonto will be a backup winger to most Premier League sides or going to Europe. Yeah,
I could agree with that. I can get that.
Yeah, absolutely. Does Dan James come back and start? Well, I mean, at Championship level, you know,
I wouldn't say it's a bad shout. I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't. I wouldn't say it's a bad shout. Like I think Dan James will probably end up at one of the promoted sides.
Yeah, I think so.
I just can feel that. Yeah.
You might even have a release clause. You never know.
Yeah.
Andy, the 49ers management structure in the NFL is superb, and that's why what they will bring to Leeds just need full control. Yet it's not quite going to be the same people running it, though, is it? I wouldn't have thought, unless is it Parag who might be try to do both. I'm not sure how that's going to work really. James, thanks for your comment, mate. We should have put Bremner's statue on the field and he would still be more effective. I have followed Leeds since 1965 and this side is worse than the 1981 side. Yeah, my God. Can you imagine relegation after the Reeve years as well? That must have been absolutely horrific. Scott Nonto and Somerville ahead of James for me. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, same for me as well. Absolutely. How long does it feel since we beat Chelsea 3-0? Do you remember that day, Jason, when it looked as if we were we might be doing bits this season?
It's crazy, isn't it? This season's just been, with the exception of the first, I think it was 4 games we were unbeaten until we lost at Brighton away. It's been pretty bloody horrible, hasn't it? I harked back to Southampton away. When we threw away the 2-goal lead, and it like again, we can do this. We can pick out the individual games where we dropped points and we did this. The fact is, over the 38 games, we've not been good enough. But yeah, seems crazy, doesn't it? Wolves at home. Southampton away, were it then Chelsea at home, 3 unbeaten, 7 points in the first 3. I mean, that is crazy. We took 7 points in those first 3 games. It should have been 9. And then we've ended up finishing on 31. No, truthfully, we deserve to be bottom. We do. Yeah. We deserve to be bottom. I said yesterday when Southampton delivered that 4-4 that they ended up getting yesterday, they still showed more fight and quality in these past 6, 7, 8 games than we have. Yeah. So, I'm heartbroken with it, but I kind of come to terms a few weeks ago, to be fair, that we deserve to be in that bottom 3. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm relieved the season is over.
Yeah, me too.
I think I'm looking forward to there being changes, whatever that may bring. I don't know if we're going to be on the right side of those changes, to be honest. I am pessimistic. Yeah, I am very pessimistic because of how we're running and what's happening with the ownership. That's a major problem for me. Is more than anything, more than who the manager is going to be or anything. The ownership is a big problem that has to be resolved ASAP. It really does. Yeah. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in. We're going to finish up now. Thank you for all your comments. Really appreciate it. It's fascinating interacting with you all. I think it's nice to kind of chat about it all and go through everything. Myself and Jason, I think we'll be back on probably in a few
We'll do another one. We'll do another one this week, and we'll make sure that we give ourselves 2 hours, an hour and 40 minutes just get swallowed up, and before you go back to work. Before you go back to work on a bank holiday Monday, I think at 9 o'clock, unfortunately, we kind of got to say we're going to cut it off. We're going to cut it for now, but yeah, it's been really, really good to kind of chat through it all, and hopefully we'll see as many of you back as possible when we do another one this week. It'll be good.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Get your comments in if you're watching the video later. We do read them all, and you know, we're in it together, aren't we? We're in it together, and we'll see where we end up. Yeah, I've been Stephen Brown. With me has been Jason Booker. Jason, thank you very much as always, and we'll see you again on the other side.
Thank you all.